And welcome to another edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast. With you, as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, co-founder of Baseball Prospectus. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and it's all positive after a very negative week last week. It's a very positive week. Sweeping the Minnesota Twins will do that. Where is the playoff confidence meter now after that sweep of the Minnesota Twins? Rany has a new comp for this Royals team, a team that he thinks from the past that looks a lot like this one. Is the starting pitching back? Have they caught a second win? How confident are you in the bullpen now? Great 3 days against the Minnesota Twins for the boys in the bullpen. Can the Royals win in the postseason without Vinnie Pasquantino? Rany's thoughts on the waiver claims. We'll work those in somewhere because Rany was off last week, so we'll get his thoughts on some of the players in here. Expectations for the week ahead, New York and Pittsburgh on the agenda this week. It's all coming up right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Back at it after a very successful series with the Minnesota Twins. Rany, dare I say, we dive right in with the playoff confidence meter, or should I remind everybody your boo-hoo from last week, where you sat? What was your comments you sent to me as David Lesky filled in for you? My playoff optimism meter stands at a 6, and I honestly don't know if that's absurdly optimistic or absurdly pessimistic. On the one hand, it's lower than the algorithms tell us it should be, but on the other hand, since Vinnie got hurt, we've seen no sign that this offense can hit. The only thing I'm confident in is that you don't have to get into the dance gracefully. You just have to get in. That was pretty low, was it not?
I think it was lower than you last week. You were what, 6.5?
Yes.
How many times this season have I been lower than you?
None. That was the first one. That was the first one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The combination of a then 6 and eventually 7-game losing streak, along with a regular season ending injury to Vinnie Pasquantino, I think had all of us, on walking the ledge a little bit. And the only thing, frankly, that kept it as high as it was the fact that every team behind them seemed determined to sabotage themselves, and nobody, was giving them a real threat in the race. A lot has changed in the 6 days since that show. The Royals are back on a 4-game winning streak now. The teams behind them have continued to stumble. Most recently demonstrated by the Boston Red Sox today, losing to possibly the worst team in the history of baseball, the 2024 Chicago White Sox. If you had told me 3 days ago that the Royals would gain a game on the Red Sox over the weekend, I would have been very happy, and my optimism would have gone up significantly. So here we stand. The Royals have 18 games left in the season. I believe they are 6 games up on the Tigers and the Mariners, if I have this correctly here. Yes, 6 games up on the Tigers and the Mariners, and 6.5 on the Red Sox. So I can't put, I'm afraid to put my optimism meter at a 9, but I'm going to go as close as possible. I'm going to say 8 3/4, which is by far the highest it's been all season. To this weekend to me was a tipping point. I mean, sometime between them cruising to a pitching dominated victory on Friday and then the big comeback yesterday after being down 2-0 the whole game. They had 1 hit in 7 innings and came back to win in the 8th. I felt like a tipping point had been reached where I think we just need to accept that the Royals are probably going to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I do too. You're at, what'd you say? 8
and 3/4. 8 3/4.
8 3/4. Okay. All right. Let me make note.
As close to a 9 as I can get without being at a 9.
We keep meticulous records here at Kaufman Corner. All right. I am at I'm at a 9, straight 9.
All right.
Yeah, I was thinking
more
about
optimistic than me for the second straight week.
I was thinking about 9 1/4, 9.5. I know I saw one of them had one of the playoff things had them at like 95%. I think I do think there is a scenario where they fall apart. Seattle has, I don't want to say righted the ship, but they're kind of messing around in that mix. And I do think there's some easy games for them to handle, especially since the A's suddenly, after Jeff Passan told me on Thursday, hey, the A's have been the best team in the American League since the All-Star break. I hadn't realized that. And they went back to looking more like the A's before the All-Star break. It's to me, and I said this last week when I bumped them up. It had nothing to do with how they were playing. It had everything to do with the bums that were chasing them. And I am still fearful of the Tigers' schedule, right? I am still fearful of the Tigers' schedule because they did handle business pretty well against the A's. They've got 3 to finish with the White Sox. That's a 3-0, and they've got 3 head-to-head with the Royals, right? I don't know that I can get to a 10 until they're actually in, or at least that series is over, right? Like once that series is behind it, because a 3-game sweep at the hands – that's a problem. And I know I saw some of the optimism. Hey, we're only 2.5 back behind the Guardians, who now have 3 with the White Sox. I will let you in on the bad news that they figure to go 3-0, at the very least 2-1. And the Royals go to the Yankees, right? So I'd love to be talking about the division. I'd love to be talking about the 1 seed. They're not far behind those numbers either. But the reality is that it's a little rough right now for them. And they continue this 20-game stretch. But man, I like the Minnesota Twins. Last week I said it was all about, the teams that were coming after him. I just didn't see anything. 3 good starting pitching performances, one of which by Alec Marsh, where he's at least giving you quality start type performances.
And 3 shutout innings from Daniel Lynch out of the bullpen.
And what was it? You texted me, Daniel Lynch, the relief expert. Or
relief stud.
Yeah, yes. Relief stud. That had made me feel better again. I still am really worried about the offense. I do think some of the new additions, I think Tommy Pham has paid off, obviously, in a couple of different spots. So I think that has helped to elongate the lineup, and will do something. We'll take up some of the slack from Vinnie Pasquantino, but they're still really going to miss Vinnie. But if the pitching is righted, that was my fear, is that the starting pitching was on fumes, and we weren't going to be seeing any more, 1-run games out of the starting pitching. That was a big part of the problem. Now, I think, I'm starting to buy that. Okay, they caught a second wind. Mike Boddicker was on Sports Radio 810 WHB, the station I work for. I'll lean back and get the shot of the shirt in there. And he said, dead arms are something that everybody goes through, and he was kind of pointing to it with Seth Lugo. He said, I had it numerous times in my career. You just got to kind of fight through and eventually get your velocity back. And that kind of looks like what's going on here, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So first off, I completely agree with you. To me, the team I'm most concerned about now are the Tigers, and it's for the reason you indicate, right? They finish with the White Sox, right? The last 3 games of the season. Fortunately, no contender has more than 3 games left with the Sox. But the fact that the Tigers finish with the Sox and they play 3 with the Royals, right? It's that combination, because if we get swept by the Tigers, all bets are off. If you throw a sweep in there right now, we're 3 games up on them, and they've got 3 games against the easiest team in baseball to finish the year. If we go into the final series of the year 1 game up, then you have to be terrified. Now, we have the tiebreaker on Detroit. The thing that scared me about the Red Sox was that they've got the tiebreaker on us, but we have the tiebreaker on the Tigers. I believe, depending on how the way the games end up, we will have the tiebreaker on the Mariners as well. And that's not a small thing. I mean, because it's a half game edge for the Red Sox. It's a half game deficit for the Tigers. That's a full game swing, one contender versus another. So having that tiebreaker on the Tigers means they have to pass us in the standings to make it. But they're really the only team that I'm really that concerned about. The Mariners don't have any gimmies on their schedule. Yes, they play the A's, but the A's are not the White Sox. I will point out, because yes, the Guardians are about to start their final series of the year against the White Sox. They're 5-5 against the White Sox this year. And if the Guardians don't win the division, they're going to be looking back at those games, because we went 12-1 against Chicago. They've gone 5-5 somehow. We are as close to the Guardians as we are to the Twins, right? We're 2.5 back of the Guardians. We're 3 back of the O's and 3.5 back of the Yankees. Like, everything is in place. So the algorithm, right? The Fangraphs algorithm has the Royals playoff odds right now 94.8%. You said it, 95%. Like, it starts. We have, if you want to be an extreme pessimist, what you could say is we have reached the point now where if the Royals do not make the playoffs, this will be remembered as a fairly epic collapse. I would say clearly, if they do not make the playoffs this year, this would be the biggest playoff miss in the history of the franchise.
So funny you mentioned that, because Danny Klingscale on Friday comes on with me, a little Danny Unleashed every Friday in the program, and he said that on Friday that this will be an epic collapse. I don't care what went on before now. If you get to this point and you don't get to the playoffs, this is an epic collapse. And I said, absolutely not. I cannot go there. I won't tolerate it. I want to slap you in the face. I think it's ridiculous. This is still a team that had one offseason and one trade deadline between completing a season that was 56 wins. And I find it hard to believe that, we could be that far down the road and you'd say, well, it's a collapse. I said, I don't think it's a collapse because they're paper thin, right? It's been a razor thin. I said, now their injuries were always going to be a big problem for this team, and they didn't have many of them. I said, the good news is they were mostly a young team, so we could expect them to be healthy. But if they had injuries to key players, it would be devastating because there was no depth in this team. There's no depth in the farm system at call up. It would be devastating. And I stand by that comment on Friday. I will listen to a little bit of collapse talk. I will not listen to monumental collapse. I will listen to none of that. But you can say it is extraordinarily disappointing. It was a bad finish. All those things. I will now listen to that after you sweep the Twins. And the margin is now 3 games later, even bigger than it was on Friday, and your pitching seems to have righted itself. Yes, I will. And I also am now at a 9. I think they're going to make it. So whatever you say now is really kind of a waste of time anyway, because they're probably going to make it.
Well, that's why, our perception now would be different than even 5 days ago. Like, I wouldn't have called this an epic. I wouldn't have called it a collapse at all at 75% playoff odds, right? 80%, which is about the highest they had gotten to before their 7-game losing streak. 95%. I mean, look at it the other way. It's instead of a 25% chance of not making the playoffs, which is where they were at about 5 days ago, they're at a 5% chance. When you look at it that way, I mean, they had a 5 times greater chance of missing the playoffs 5 days ago, because a quarter of the season's gone on, and they've actually increased their lead, and they've moved to 2.5 games up on the Twins, meaning there's yet one other team that, even if they were to collapse, that they have to be caught by 2 teams now, not one. So, and again, that's an extremely pessimistic view of this where we are now. My point is more just to say that is how good a position the Royals are in right now. That an ordinary collapse, they'll still squeak in. Right? They're right now, they're the 5 seed, and they're almost as close to the 1 seed as they are to the 6 seed. So it's a very wild jumble. Just off the top of your head, what do you think the algorithms say the playoff odds are for the Royals to win the division?
What did the thing I looked at on winning the division say?
I
don't know.
What would you guess it to be? What would
I guess right now? 41%.
No, not quite that high. I was thinking 20. It's at 18%. You still got to catch the Guardians. They have the easier schedule, much easier, but that's because they have 3 games coming up right now against the worst team in baseball history. So 3 games from now, the schedule strengths for both the Royals and Guardians will be basically identical. If not, we might even have an easier schedule after the next 3 games. So if we can just hold serve here, because we're playing the Yankees, they're playing the White Sox, but if the Royals can go into Yankee Stadium and they've got Lugo and they've got Reagans going in the series, that's the thing about this team that's incredible, is that every single day, I mean, they just 3 games against the Twins, they give up 2 runs. And, so yes, the offense is not clicking right now. Obviously, they're missing Vinnie. Salvi's in a slump. Bobby Witt quietly or not so quietly. He's, his last, I think 10 games, he's 7 for 38. I had it on my potential agenda to talk about are we worried about him? Because this started, he got hit by a pitch on his arm, I want to say 11 days ago. And the very next
voicemail, the person you're trying to reach is
not. That's weird.
Little
I don't even know how that. It's my studio line phone.
Oh well,
I'm glad it went to voicemail though.
So there you go. Yeah, we're not taking calls yet in this show. So the day after,
we do have the technology. If
we could do it. We have a comments section on the web. That's
I got a couple I want to get to here real quick, but go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so the very next day after he got hit, he homered, and so we're all thinking, okay, he's 100%. But like, if you wanted to be paranoid, you could say, is Bobby playing hurt because he got hit by a pitch and he's kind of gone into a slump. So I was looking into his batted ball metrics, and they're not quite as good over the last 50 or so plate appearances as they were when he was like, white hot in July. But his expected weighted on base average over the last 50 plate appearances was still like 360, which is, well above average, even if not maybe elite. So I'm not, at the moment at least, I'm not worried that he's actually playing hurt. But, neither him nor Salvi have been hot. And when they're not, and you don't have Vinnie, the offense is not going to click, right? And yet, even with that, the pitching is so good. That's my point. The pitching is so good. Even with that, they're able to win games.
Well, it was good this week against the Twins, and I think part of the reason why they're not hot is because Vinnie's not there. There's a direct correlation from not having that third bat. By the way, there's a direct correlation towards getting things done in your parking lot. It's called contacting Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serves the greater Kansas City area, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear in Kansas City since 1994. It's important. Get booked right now to get your seal coating done. The weather is turning cooler. Soon it'll be cold, and you won't be able to get seal coating done. Weekends are booking up fast already with Gann, so contact them today. You can call 816-484-3338. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, every project coming with a written warranty. Why would you go anywhere else? Gann Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Like I said, find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. I want to bring this up. Listen, this is a series of comments we had. Kurt says, Royals just need to win one against the Tigers. Okay. Jake says, why do you even bring up getting swept by the Tigers? Right? And then Dr. Zhivago, it's always great to have one of the all-time greats with us, says, Royals have played Detroit well. Okay, and I get it, an object in motion tends to stay in motion, but the Royals hadn't played the Twins well, and they just swept them. So, like, past performance is an indicator. Sure, you can look at things, but it's not a guarantee of how things will go. So I'm not predicting a sweep at the hands of the Tigers. I'm just saying there are 3 games that they have to play. If the Tigers would cut it to, 3 games, and they go into that series knowing win all 3 and they're tied, it's just not a spot you want to be in.
Right.
And they've got the White Sox, or no, the Guardians have the White Sox.
The Tigers have the White Sox to finish the season.
Well, they do, but the Guardians have the White Sox now. But the Tigers, right. but I want to point to they have the White Sox to finish, but they have the Colorado Rockies next, right? So they did well against the A's. Then after that they have home for Baltimore, KC. Or at KC, at Baltimore, home for Tampa, before finishing with the White Sox. So it's a sandwich with the meat being tougher on the inside.
And the big thing there is that series is in Kansas City, at least. Like that, I feel a lot better. The odds that they sweep the Royals in Kansas City, where they are 45-30 now, I want to say. Yeah, 45-30 after today's win. That, is, again, I'm not that worried. We're just pointing out this is like a worst case scenario here. It could happen.
Right. We're not. Yeah, it's not a prediction. It's just like, hey, this is what you got to guard against, and this is why we're not at a 10. I saw somebody was at a 10. That's great. You're probably going to be right. But it's none of the math has it at 100% right now. And I want to point out, against the Yankees, the Royals are getting ready to play the Yankees, and what they do against the Yankees this year, they went loss, win. They salvaged 1 win, which I think they came from behind to get,
and that was in Kansas City.
And they got 1. All right, so 3 against the Rockies for the Tigers, and the Royals got. I'm with most of the thought. Jake later said, "Hey, just get 1 against the Yankees." I'm kind of that mindset as well. That just don't get swept, right? But 2 out of 3 for the Yankees, and then I would be getting very close to pressing the 10 button.
Yeah, no. Again, the next 3 days, where we have the Guardians playing the White Sox, the Royals playing the Yankees. They have a chance if they play well here. If they win 2 out of 3 and they don't lose any ground on the Guardians, we will probably move our focus from will the Royals make the playoffs to can the Royals steal the division, right? But as it stands right now, like they're the 5 seed right now. Even if they don't win the division, if they can move ahead of either the Orioles or the Yankees, they become the 4 seed, which means they get to host that wild card round, right? Like right now, the 5 or 6 seed, you get 0 home playoff games. And as we saw 10 years ago, 2014, the difference between being the 4 seed and the 5 seed, having that home wild card game can make all the difference in the world. Not every time, but if it makes a difference 5% of the time, that was absolutely one of the 5% that game. So they still have plenty of stuff to play for right now. I know there are a lot of people debating would they be better off as a 6 seed playing the 3 seed versus, which likely will be the Astros, but we don't know that for sure, versus being the 5 seed. Right now, they have so much opportunity to move ahead, move up the ladder of the seeding. You don't even worry about that till like the last 3 or 4 games of the year. Right now, like every win can matter, even if it doesn't mean getting a playoff bye. If it means getting a home field in the first round, that could be huge. So they're in a really good spot right now. I mean, 18 games left, potentially 4 starts from both Lugo and Reagans. Right now, I believe the way the rotation is set up, Lugo and Reagans would start the final 2 games of the season, which is a nice situation to have them in, because if those games wind up not mattering, you can adjust your rotation, give Reagans a little extra rest so that he can start game 1 of the wild card round instead of starting the last game of the season. But if a potential bye is on the line, then you have him lined up to start that game that you really need to win.
Yeah. And I think that's I can't even get to where I'm thinking about like lining up pitchers, but but with the margin they've got, they're going to be able to do that. Right. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about that more next week. A lot.
Sure.
By the way, we're brought to you by our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting-edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros, boost energy, reduce stress, enhance well-being. Perfect for athletes, busy professionals, anyone looking to improve their health. Personalized wellness plans are tailored to your specific needs. And first-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention my last name, Petro, Petro. That's right, mention Petro. When your first IV therapy is just $99, visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Let's talk a little bit about the rotation. You kind of started down that road, or let's get your comp. I'll come back to the pitching.
Okay. Well, they're actually connected. Connected.
Okay.
I was thinking about this. We've compared the Royals to.
Can I put up? I don't know if I can find it real quick, but somebody had a prediction on who it would be. Did you see it when I put it up there?
I did not, and I don't want to give it away, but I'm scrolling up here and
hang on. Well, I got to find it to post it. Hang on.
Okay. Well, the point I want to make is that we've made comps in the past over the last couple of months, right? The 2003 team is sort of like the comp you make if you don't believe in this team. But as we've started to believe in this team more and more, the 2014 team, which was flawed but was built for the playoffs, we've used that comp a lot. But I want to give you the comp that is sort of hiding in plain sight here. And here's I'm going to see if you can predict it. It's not that difficult.
Well, I like who the listener had, and that's why I want to give them credit.
Oh,
because when I had no idea.
Is it the 91 Braves? Is that what they're saying here? Oh, that's interesting. No, the comp I was going to make actually was to a Royals team.
Okay.
And we're a Royals team. Let's think about what this team is right now. And I really thought about this when they started picking up all of the waiver claims and buying Yuli Gurriel's contract. So we have a team that has a truly incredible rotation, like incredible in the sense of it's 5 deep, and it's got star potential at the top, right? Like you have 2 elite starters, but every starter is at least average. You have a generational superstar in your lineup. The guy batting behind him in that lineup is a veteran who's a longtime Royal who's been there forever, right? And is going to be a future Royals Hall of Famer, right? Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt. So it's the rotation. And then the rest of the lineup is a bunch of like, I don't want to say nobodies, but it's like everything else is mixing and matching and hoping that this guy gets hot for a week and, maybe platooning at this position over here. They really like, despite the incredible rotation, despite having a Bobby Witt and a Salvador Perez, it's not a great team. It's a good team because the rest of the lineup is being pieced together day by day. What Royals team does that remind you of?
85.
It's the 85. It's the 85 Royals. And the reason this came to my mind recently is, like I said, when they picked up Gurriel and Robbie Grossman and Tommy Pham, it reminded me of something about the 85 Royals that I didn't know about until a few years ago when Kurt Nelson, who's the director of the Royals Hall of Fame, actually, we were talking about something else, and he brought this up to me, and I couldn't believe it when he told me. So in 1985, in early September, the Royals were, I think, a game and a half out of first place. Remember, this is 1985. If you don't win the division, you're not in the playoffs. So they're in the height of a pennant race. Willie Wilson had an allergic reaction to a penicillin shot in his butt. I don't recall this. I was 10 years old at the time, so I'm taking Kurt Nelson's word for it. But the point is, they suddenly were without Willie Wilson in their lineup, and they were desperate. So they went out and signed a player who had just been released by the Yankees like 2 weeks earlier, a guy by the name of Omar Moreno. Do you remember Omar Moreno?
Vaguely.
Vaguely, yeah. Omar Moreno was, a longtime, major league player. Was basically a starter for close to a decade, was a center fielder for most of his career, stole tons of bases. He once stole 96 bases in a season. I mean, this is the time where they just let guys just run, right?
He was probably 96 for 155 or something.
Close. He didn't. Well, here's what you have. 1980. He stole 96 bases. He didn't lead the league in stolen bases, for one thing.
Ricky? No, 1980.
1980. Actually, I'm surprised who that did because he was in the National League. I need to look that up because Ricky was in the American League. I got to see who the hell.
I'll look it
anyway,
up.
But he did lead the league in caught stealings with 33. So yes, you're right. Had like no power. I think he had a career high of 8 home runs. But here's the thing: in 1980, the thing that I remember him for, because when I got into sabermetrics in the late 80s, early 90s, so just after his career was over, Omar Moreno was known among the analytics set as Omar the Outmaker, because this is an era in which nobody cared about on-base percentage, except us weirdo analytic types. This is even before we had an internet to like congregate on, but his lifetime OBP was 306. And so, yeah, he was a leadoff hitter because he was fast and speedy and hit triples and things like that, but he never walked. And so actually in 1980, Omar Moreno still holds the all-time major league record for outs made in a season. He made 560 outs, right? You can't make that many outs without playing every day, and you certainly played 162 games. But also, he had a low OBP. He got thrown out 33 times on the bases. The point is, he was an overrated player. He had been released by the Yankees. He was done, right? The Royals signed him on September the 3rd. September the 4th, he comes into the game as a defensive replacement for the Royals. He makes his Royals debut. They actually win the game in extra innings. On September the 5th, he's in the starting lineup. He goes 3 for 4 with a triple and a homer and 3 RBIs, and the Royals win 4-1. On September the 6th, he goes 2 for 4 with a triple, and they win 7-1. On September the 7th, he goes 3 for 3 with a walk, 4 RBIs, and the Royals win 7-4. For a weekend, Omar Moreno was the greatest player in baseball. He didn't do anything after that. But like he single-handedly won the Royals like 2 games in his first weekend with the team. They won the division by 2 games. And it's like, sometimes you just need to pick up somebody who gets hot for a weekend. And that is very much what the Royals are trying to do here with Pham and Gurriel and Robbie Grossman. And it's kind of working, right? I mean, Pham is in the lineup every day. He's giving them the leadoff hitter that they've been looking for all season long, right? Today he walked twice. He got on base twice. Do you know what those three guys have combined to hit so far? I have the numbers here for you if you want to know.
Yeah, lay it on me.
13. So in 48 plate appearances, I believe they've had. Yeah, they're hitting 310 batting average with a 375 OBP and a 452 slug. They're hitting 310. They got 3 doubles and a homer. They have better aggregate numbers than Vinnie Pasquantino did. It's only 48 plate appearances, but this is the point. You're in a small sample size, almost anything can happen. You're just hoping that they get hot. You're hoping that they don't hurt you. They're definitely better than what the Royals had as alternatives, right? We haven't seen a ton of Garrett Hampson and Adam Frazier out there, let alone Tyler Gentry, or they designated CJ Alexander for assignment to make room for these guys. But I'll give JJ tons of credit for picking up these guys. He had basically like a 36-hour window to pick these guys up before playoff rosters had to be set. And was able to acquire 3 different dudes. 2 he claimed off waivers. The other guy, he bought the contract. They didn't give up any talent, just money. Give credit to ownership because, 1 month of Tommy Pham, 1 month of Robbie Grossman's probably $1 million and a half dollars on their current contracts. But the biggest difference between them and Omar Moreno, the reason why I didn't know about Omar Moreno was picked up on September 3rd. He wasn't eligible for the postseason roster. I know all about the 85 Royals and the postseason exploits. Omar Moreno wasn't on the postseason. I'm sure he was in the dugout somewhere. These guys are all postseason eligible. And, we obviously Vinnie, Willie Wilson was out for a week. Vinnie's going to be out at least through the wild card round. I can't imagine he'll be back. The wild card round starts 4 weeks after his surgery date on his thumb. So miraculous if he comes back for the ALDS. I'm hoping he'll be back for the ALCS. But all 3 of those guys, it's not just, that Pham's in the lineup most days. It's the bench depth, right? They actually have hitters on their bench. They're carrying 15 hitters now, right? Which is something we didn't think they would do. They didn't have 15 hitters in the organization worth carrying. Now they do. And that will carry them through September. And then we will see come playoff time if they'll carry, if not 15, at least 14 hitters. They're not going to need more than, 8 relievers in the playoffs. So I'm thrilled about what they picked up at a time where you literally cannot, trade for anybody. To be able to acquire 3 guys of this caliber it's an impressive deal. And every win matters. And, these guys are probably going to be responsible for at least a win in the standings. So good for the Royals, good for JJ, good for ownership to do it. I'm excited about it. And again, another comp to the 85 Royals. Just get in. You can be a flawed team, but if you've got a great rotation and you've got a superstar in the middle of your lineup, that might be enough to take you all the way in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we had the comments about how it was really just the starters in 85 and Quiz, an inning here or there, someplace else. You're not going to get through it like that now, right? They're going to need more from the bullpen. But on that rotation, did they just have a good time through, or do you think that there is a second wind here? I mean, we've been worrying about the innings total all year long, and it looked like that was really getting to them. Are we ready to say that that's no longer a problem now?
I mean, I'm really, I don't want to say I have no concern, but I probably have less concern than I did 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Reagan's velocity has come back. Well, right. His velocity been dipping, and it's come back a little. Lugo's has been pretty steady all year round, all year long. I think 3 and 4 starts ago, it had dipped the last 2 starts back to where it was. Brady Singers has been even all season long. I haven't actually looked at Walker's, but I mean, Walker's pitching as well as anybody in the rotation right now, right? He's been great. So one of the things I want to give the Royals tons of credit for is not believing in the hype of innings limits, innings caps, the number of innings that a guy can throw, based on how many he threw the year before. Because so many teams that still believe in this idea that you have to limit the jump in innings from one year to the next. And if a guy threw 100 innings last year, he can't go more than, you can't increase his innings total by more than 30 or 40 innings the following year. And, I've been doing analytics for 30 years now. Right. And I've seen, we've done a lot of analyzing of data, but one of the things that's important is understanding what data actually is meaningful and what isn't. And I've been saying for a long time that this idea of some people call it the Verducci effect. On Tom Verducci at Sports Illustrated has talked about it a lot. This idea that like if a pitcher's innings go up too much, he's likely to get hurt or he's likely to regress the following year. I've been saying for a long time, there's no evidence of a correlation. The reason why if a pitcher's innings go up a lot, he might get hurt the next year is because all pitchers might get hurt the next year, right? All pitchers, if your innings go up, it means you're pitching well or better than the year before. If you're pitching better than the year before, you're probably going to regress the year after that, right? And you have to account for those effects. And when you do, I have yet to see any evidence that as long as you manage their pitch counts, you're not irresponsible with the way you use them. There's no reason why you can't do it. But so many teams are still extremely careful with the way they use their pitchers, in my opinion, being counterproductive about it. When you're in a pennant race, you have to take the reins off. Let's look what the Royals have done. Seth Lugo right now is leading the American League with 186 innings. All right, this is the guy we talked about all year. We were worried about him back in April, May, June. His career high last year was 146 innings. He's gone 40 innings past that limit. But I haven't seen any sign that he's, wearing down, let alone that they're putting him in danger of being hurt, right? Cole Reagans, who, frankly, after Bobby Witt, might be the most valuable commodity in the organization as a guy who's under club control for 4 more years. He's at 167 innings. His career high is as a pro before this year was 135. So he's exceeded his career high by 32 innings. He looked phenomenal in his last start. The start before that, frankly, he looked the best maybe I've ever seen him for 5 innings. He had 10 strikeouts through 5 innings. I think he had allowed 1 base runner, and then it fell apart in the 6th inning. He gave up like 5 base runners in a row, and they pulled him. But he came back out in his last outing and went through the 6th inning, 6 shutout innings. Cole Reagans is back to pitching like an ace. Brady Singer is approaching his career high. He'll probably pass it in his next start. Michael Wacha has thrown, up to 180 innings in his career, so he's not at a career high. But the point is, the Royals have not approached their rotation with fear. I don't think any of these guys have thrown even 110 pitches in a start. So they've been very deliberate, very careful with the way they use them, but they're not shutting them down for no reason. You're in a pennant race. The point of playing the game is to go to the playoffs. And the Royals have not let, this weird theory interfere with that. And it's paying dividends. Here we are in September. And after, like you said, kind of a dead arm period a little bit in August, the rotation the last time through has been as good as it's been all season. And I think, you look around baseball, people are starting to really take notice of the Royals, not just as a threat to make the playoffs, but as a threat in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to go back to the innings jump thing. I think where everyone was part of the problem was people were paying so much for pitchers, right? And like when you put that much into them, they're terrified of not getting the back end of it out. And I think you see like the contracts one with an option. Like Michael Wacha's not on a 5-year contract, so if it doesn't pan out, you've got 1 bad year on the back end, right? Like if he blows up next year, fine, that's it. His contract's over. And so I think it allows. I think smart teams are recognizing. And the Yankees are probably going to get away with the Garrett Cole contract, and there are a handful of them. The Diamondbacks contract, Zach Greinke was good for his whole contract. Some of them they do, but most of them, though, that's a bad idea to be signing pitchers for that long. And so I think if you're not tied in, for that long, and I think if you just admit they're all going to get hurt, and so build your roster with that in mind, then you got a better chance of succeeding. But let's be clear, they've been pretty fortunate when it comes to their starting pitching health.
They've been extremely fortunate.
Miraculously. So don't think that every year, because on average, we looked it up, playoff teams needed 8 guys to start. How many guys have started a game for the Royals this year? Just because for shoots and giggles, they gave Jonathan Bolin a start. Lynch got a start.
Lynch got 3, Lorenzo got 5, and then Dan Altavilla started 1 as an opener. I wouldn't count that one. So if you don't count him, it's 8, but literally Bolin got 1. So right. 7 guys, Lynch got 3 starts, and then it's really just the 6 guys, the 5 plus Michael Lorenzen, right? And that was a trick.
On average, it was 8, but it wasn't this few. If I went back and said, how many did your main guys start? It wasn't going to be the bulk that these
exactly.
And by the way, Marsh got replaced. He didn't get hurt.
Exactly.
Bad.
Right.
And got
They just chose to upgrade. But like, I mean, the only reason any of those five guys missed a start was because Marsh and Waka got hit by line drives. It was a batted ball injury, which is like the most unpredictable, freakish injury. Unfortunately, not serious. They both just missed a few starts. I mean, if it's 1 year, I'll say there's got to be some luck involved. There's also has to be some skill involved in the way that the Royals are managing a pitching staff, which is, I think we can give them some credit for that because we've seen them. We've seen what this new regime does in terms of making pitchers better. I don't think it's a stretch to say that they also have a way of monitoring their pitchers' health, not pushing them too far. And that while, yes, they've been lucky this year, the Royals at least seem to have, made pitcher health a priority. And if they can maintain that year after year, because some of these guys are going to get hurt, but like, look, Michael Walker might not be on the team next year. And that's okay, right? Because Chris Bubich could probably move back into the rotation next year, right? Like they're already making plans for next year. I mean, they picked up Kyle Wright on a rehab season with the intention of putting him into the rotation next year if he's healthy. So like they already have backup plans for next year if these guys aren't available. But right now it's September the 8th, and all these guys are still healthy. They're as healthy as they were in April, as far as we can tell.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete proudly serves the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've solved them for 30 years in Kansas City, starting back in 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents, keep your parking lot as safe as possible. One contractor, all things parking lot. That's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether it's concrete bumpers, drainage, building the parking lot from scratch, or fixing the one you've got, they do it all. One contractor, all things parking lot. It's Gann Asphalt and Concrete online at GannAsphalt.com. How about the bullpen? It was phenomenal in the Minnesota Twins series. And we've had the comments, well, really didn't need that much bullpen in 85. You're going to need more of it this year.
No, 100%.
I also want to underscore that Lucas Urseg has pitched the ninth, and it's looked pretty good the last couple of times. I understand the analytics. I understand about, this is the point in the game, but that we want to go to. But I think there's also something about letting a guy prep and prepare and have that inning. And I think we saw it with the 7th, 8th, and 9th with HDH back in the day where they all were treated like closers. The 7th inning was one guy, the 8th was the next, so on and so forth. Ursig looks pretty damn good in the 9th, and the 9th is different, in my opinion. Let's start. Where do you want to start? Ursig's usage, or do you want to go with just how good you think the bullpen is right now, or how ready it is when you trim the fat off of it for the playoffs?
Right. Well, I mean, let's start with Ursig. Let's talk about the way it was used today, because like you talk about my optimism for the bullpen. It's not just about who they have in there. It's about how they're going to use them. And today, what did we see? We saw Michael Walker.
Rany recipe.
It was Michael. It was the starter for 7.
Yeah.
It was Chris Bubich in the 8th, and it was Ursig in the 9th. Now, first off, like I'm just the fact that Ursig is healthy. Like when Vinnie got hurt, like we thought there were 2 guys hurt on that play that like we weren't sure that Ursig was going to miss more time than Vinnie in the moment. And as bad as the outcome was for Vinnie, the fact that Ursig basically missed 4 or 5 games, and he probably could have come back sooner, but they didn't have any leads to protect. He had a bruised hand, but he's come back. He's pitched well since. Like that's a relief. Like if you had to choose one guy to be without between Vinnie and Ursig for the playoffs, that's a tough call. I mean, Vinnie is an everyday guy, but like if you take Ursig out of this bullpen, it forces everyone else into a role that's one step harder than what they're in right now. So like the fact that Ursig is healthy and throwing strikes and pitching well since then is a good sign. But Bubich in the 8th, like the Royals have frustrated me for 2 months because they didn't seem to acknowledge that he was clearly the second best reliever in their bullpen. But they're they were frustrating me because they wouldn't use him on less than 2 or 3 days rest. But whereas we're getting into September in the crunch time, he's pitched on back-to-back days. He's pitched, in a 2-run lead. Like today was the ultimate test for who are they going to turn to in crunch time. Because, on Friday, they had a 5-0 lead after Cole Reagans came out, and they turned to, who did they go to? They went to MacArthur in the 7th, Sam Long in the 8th, and Schreiber in the 9th. which great. I mean, when the lead is 4 or 5 runs, it's great to turn to those guys. But with a 2-run lead in the 8th and 9th inning against a divisional rival, you got to go to your best. They made it very clear these are the 2 best guys. So that part of it makes me really happy because Bubic has been like, ignore his ERA. I know his ERA isn't good. He's had a couple of blow-ups. Some of those runners scored after he came out of the game. Do you know what Chris Bubic's strikeout to walk ratio is this year?
Well, I can
Do you
scan
want
the
to guess?
screen over.
Don't look it up. Yes.
Okay, but can I ask first? Can I answer? By the way, we left something dangling out there. Who led the league in stolen bases when Robert Moreno
Oh yeah. Who was it?
had his number?
90s. Hold on, 96.
He had 96. The American League was led by
Ricky
Anderson.
Rick under 30. Was it Frank Tavares?
No. The National League was led by a Montreal Expo.
1980.
A former Tiger. Before this, he was a Tiger.
Oh, Ron LaFleur.
Ron LaFleur from the Tigers. And Ron LaFleur had 97 and Moreno had 96.
I was going to say somebody had 97. Ron LaFleur.
Now back to your Chris Bubic. Strikeout to walk ratio.
And to make it clear, I'm taking out his intentional walks. He's had 2 free passes. And nowadays, you don't even have to throw the pitch. You just put up 4 fingers. Those
7
do
to
not
1.
count. Huh?
7-1.
27-1.
Oh, wow.
He has 1 walk. If you take out the 2 free passes, he's in 21 innings, he's walked 1 batter. He struck out 27. And look, strikeout to walk ratio isn't everything, but I will submit that there has never been a pitcher in baseball history with a 27-1 strikeout to walk ratio who wasn't a really, really good pitcher. So, like, Chris Bubic is throwing strikes and missing bats, and he's perfect in that role. Ursig isn't quite that good, but he's at 21-2. So, we'll take that. You don't, you need probably more than 2 elite relievers in the playoffs, but like as the 2014-2015 Royals showed, you can probably get away with 3. If you have 3 elite relievers and everyone else is just okay, you'll be fine. So the Royals have 2 elite guys, and I don't know who the 3rd best guy is in that bullpen right now. I think push comes to shove, they'll probably go with Sam Long. But, James MacArthur has rediscovered the movement on his pitches. There was Annie Rogers had actually a little blurb today in her daily newsletter about the Royals working with him and adjusting his basically his throwing angle a little bit to get
working with who?
James MacArthur.
With MacArthur.
Because MacArthur, I remember, he was awesome for about 6 weeks in the beginning of the season and just got awful for 3 months and just couldn't miss bats. And then suddenly started striking out guys again. I'm not saying I trust him in the late inning role. Like, I wouldn't want him back as a closer, but like, sure, as a 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy, yeah, maybe he's okay. I mean, the wild card, of course, is Carlos Hernandez, who has been, has shown flashes of brilliance. I wouldn't trust him either. But the point is, none of these guys have to be trusted in a clutch role, right? You have Bubic and Ursig, but you've got all those guys, Long, Carlos Hernandez, MacArthur, and even Schreiber has a role because he's a kind of a ground ball guy. He's only given up 1 home run all year. If you got, you need a double play, Schreiber might be a good guy to go to. The only guy in the bullpen who really I don't see having any kind of role in the playoffs is Chris Stratton. I don't really know what he does. And what I'm really interested to see, Michael Lorenzen is supposed to make a rehab start on Tuesday. If he's ready to go, I'd like to see him back in the rotation, not because I don't want Marsh pitching, because I want to see Marsh in the bullpen. Right? Because we've seen what Daniel Lynch can. That's the other thing. Daniel Lynch, that's another wild card.
But realistically, they're both going to be in the bullpen in the postseason.
Exactly. They will. But I just want to see Marsh in like a 1-inning role just to see if he can dial it up even more. Because if he can, instead of, he's averaging 94 to 95 pretty consistently as a starter. If he can throw 97 out of the bullpen, Marsh becomes a very potential weapon. And I mean, Lynch didn't pitch in the bullpen in Omaha all season. I thought that they would move him there in preparation for needing him in the bullpen. They just kept him in the rotation. They brought him up, put him straight in the bullpen, and he was good from day one. And he's been very good really ever since. So Marsh could be a weapon there too. So they have the pieces of a quality postseason bullpen. They have the most important 2 pieces, which are your closer and your setup man. And then they have a bunch of guys that you can mix and match, and a couple of guys who I think we'll know a lot more in 3 weeks. Is Daniel Lynch for real? Can Carlos Hernandez continue to pitch well? Can Alec Marsh adjust to the bullpen? I want to see a lot of those guys over the next 3 weeks to see can any of them emerge as a third weapon for the Royals going into the postseason.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how good your bullpen is during the regular season. It matters how good they are in October. And if you can get them to peak at the right time with this rotation as well, like you're in the Royals could be in very good shape come October.
Yeah. No, I agree. We'll close with this. What do we think? What do we think that they look like with Vinnie Pasquantino on the bench in the postseason? Can you see this lineup? I mean, do you like? You touched a little bit on the waiver claims and your thoughts on that, but and what they've all done to this point. But do you think the lineup's good enough, or is it going to be like, hey, great story, we got there, let's hope we put up a good fight, but it's going to take just electric pitching to move on?
My biggest concern with Pasquantino being out, besides obviously quality bat, right? Like, yes, we miss his bat, is the fact that he batted left-handed, right? He's a left-handed hitter. And as much as I think I like the pickups of Pham and Gurriel and Grossman, none of them bat left-handed. Robbie Grossman's a switch hitter, but he's actually historically hit much better against lefties than righties. The Royals right now have four guys on the entire roster. If you don't count Grossman, 4 left-handed hitters on the roster. All right. One of them is MJ Melendez. And he might be the most important hitter on the entire roster come postseason because he's the one left-handed bat that you can see doing major damage against a right-hander. The second one is Michael Massey. And Massey is also key. The problem with Massey is that he's, with his back, they don't want to play him every day. Hopefully in the postseason, with the days off, they'll be able to use him. If they have Massey and Melendez in the lineup every day, I'll feel much better. Because the other two are Kyle Isbell, who bats 9th, and then Adam Frazier, who's, purely a bench guy. And so they're going to be starting 6 right-handed hitters at the very least in any given day. That's where I feel like they're going to miss Vinnie a lot. So a lot of it, and I do think also this is why the team that they end up facing in the playoffs is going to matter, both in terms of who their pitchers are. The Royals actually would probably prefer to face a team that relies on left-handed starters because they have a lot more options from the right side. Some of it matters the ballpark. We can talk about this. We'll talk about the seeding later. But the one thing I just want to say, I don't want to see Baltimore, or I don't want to play in Baltimore. Like if we play in the first round, all the games are in Baltimore. Remember, they moved their left field fence back 3 years ago before the 2022 season. They moved it back like 25 feet.
Yeah.
And, Baltimore's become notorious for being like maybe the hardest place to hit a home run to left field. The ballpark factors, right-handed hitters, or Camden Yards is 28 out of 30 ballparks in terms of how easy it is to hit a home run there. Like it's the third hardest park for right-handed hitter. But it is like 9th best for left-handers, right? You think about the scoreboard in right field, Utah Street beyond that. Like it's a great place to hit the ball for power if you're a left-handed hitter. Terrible for right-handed hitters. And the Orioles are loaded with left-handed power. Like they've built around that. Right now, the Royals have had 58 home runs the whole season from left-handed hitters, and 19 of those are from Vinnie. So there are, I think, or is it 56? They have like 37 home runs on the roster right now from left-handed hitters. Gunnar Henderson by himself has 36. The Orioles have 132 home runs from left-handed hitters this year. So this is my concern with playing Baltimore, is that just the ballpark. So beyond that, though, it's like you really hope the Royals face up against some left-handed pitching, or at least right-handers who are not like don't throw 3/4 or sidearm delivery. That's really hard for right-handers to pick up because I could see them being just beaten down by a really tough right-handed pitcher, like Garrett Cole type or something like that.
Yeah, I listen. I love some of the comments, by the way, that have been out there. I love Matt's. Well, there's only one thing left to do. That's a line from. I hope everyone gets that from Major League. Win the whole blanket thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that would be great, but there is a lot more to mix and match. And I also like to point. Brady Singer's not pitching in Baltimore. That's not happening. Better.
Well, I mean, the incredible thing is in the first round, I mean, they're not going to need him. Like, I mean, right now it's like Lugo, it's going to be Reagan's Lugo Waka, I assume. Right. And that's the whole point. Like, they don't need to carry more than 6 real relievers because they're going to have Singer in the bullpen. They'll have Lorenzen and Waka probably in the bullpen for the first round. But I mean, the incredible thing is here, I'm sitting here unironically talking to you about like playoff matchups and ballpark effects for, a short series. Look, we said at the beginning of the year of the show that yes, it would be an epic. We're approaching epic collapse territory if they don't make it. But look, no matter what happens, we're talking about playoff matchups on September the 8th. The Royals have won. Like the Royals have had a great year. You would hate for it to end badly, but it's incredible that they're doing what they're doing right now. Like this is our best case scenario to start the year, and for once, they actually nailed the best case scenario.
And what do they go this week? Yankees and Pirates.
I mean, I'll say 3-3. It's not going to be easy. I'm pretty sure they see Paul Skeens on Sunday. I want to say, which I was the thing with the Pirates when you talk about the difficulty of that matchup is simply who do they face in the rotation, because the Pirates have some great starters and some not so great starters, but Paul Skeens, who might be the best rookie pitcher in a decade, I think is lined up to face them. But at the same time, he hasn't thrown more than 6 innings in weeks, and they're probably going to limit him to about 5 innings. They're probably going to limit him to about 80 to 90 pitches. The problem with the Royals is that 80 to 90 pitches can easily be seven innings because they're such free swingers. But my hope is, even if they lose 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, if they can take 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh, that'd be great. But I'm hoping they can steal 2 out of 3 in New York. Look, this is a playoff. This could be a playoff preview here. And we got Lugo and Reagan's going. I love the idea of Reagan's a lefty in Yankee Stadium. The only thing I regret about it is that I kind of wish they wouldn't get a chance to see him before a playoff series. I'd love to save Cole Reagan's, one of the best lefties in the sport, against the Yankees until October. But the way the matchup is, I feel like there's a chance the Royals could steal 2 out of 3 in the series. So I'm going to say 3-3 overall. If they do that, playoff odds probably won't go down and may even go up a little bit a week from now.
Yeah, I think so as well. Don't forget, we're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, solving parking lot problems in Kansas City since 1994. Nationally recognized, full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Easy for me to say, easy for them to do. You can find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com. And don't forget, first-time IV therapy at Restore Hyper Wellness is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name, Petro, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. You can visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Embrace a healthier, happier you. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I am Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.